Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tabs on Tap. I'm Tabitha Hassell. I hope all of you are having a fantastic morning. it feels like it's so early, but I guess it's because it's the day after a holiday. Most of you are probably out shopping. I don't know, do people still do that? I don't think that Black Friday is the same as what it used to be because so many people I think are ordering online. I've heard from some people who are out at various Black Friday sales, and they're all kind of saying the same thing. There's not a lot of people out. And you guys may be experiencing something different, but that's what I'm hearing. It's not like the old days when people got up at 3 in the morning and were standing in line by 5 a.m. Or maybe it is. I don't know. I've only went Black Friday shopping maybe twice. It is not my thing. I don't want to deal with all those crowds and everything else that's going on. It's just not me. But I do hope you guys all had a fantastic Thanksgiving. Hopefully, your plans all worked out as they were supposed to. Mine was a little chaotic, as is pretty much everything is for me. Good morning, Dottie. And you're waiting on me with coffee in hand. I've got some coffee myself up in the corner. I was running a couple minutes late today, which is crazy because my body clock, I don't know what it is. I wake up every morning at like 4:23, 4:24, 4:25 a.m. every single morning. Even if there's no show, even if I have nothing to do that day, right on the dot. I wouldn't even need to set an alarm. I don't know why. Your guess is as good as mine. But I was having some sound issues. I still can't hear myself today, and which is perfectly fine. It really doesn't matter unless I have a guest. So things are good. Good morning, Beatrice. I hope you guys are all doing good this morning. And I'll tell you, yes, our show for sure, the show for everyone. And, I hope you guys had a good holiday. Holidays are hard, like I said, for me, because, everything changes. And, this happens in every family where the grandparents, pass on and they're the people who keep the traditions together. And you have all the cousins and uncles and different family members coming together, at that family's house with your grandparents and so on. And when that falls apart, then you don't really see, those people as much anymore. Somebody has to pick up the tradition and carry it on. And since my grandparents passed away, I primarily I went to both of my grandmother's house. My grandma married one of my grandmothers passed away years ago, the other one just 4 years ago. And things are definitely different, in my family. We haven't gotten any kind of plan together as a group. We just kind of all, spark out and do our own different things. And so, again, my son's father passed away. I lost my brother 2 years ago. It's hard to believe it was the second Thanksgiving without him and the third without my son's father. So things are a little crazy on in our family. We try to keep it together best we can, even though it's not easy. And I know all of you guys are dealing with the same type of thing. That's just unfortunate part of life, But I woke up in the morning and I can be a little bit scatterbrained sometimes. I had a 23-pound turkey, and my plan was because strangely enough, my oven is not that big. I have a wall oven and it's not that big, and it would have accommodated a turkey fine, but I really wanted to smoke the turkey. If you smoke a whole turkey, like the whole intact turkey, it takes about I think it's 30 minutes per pound because you smoke it really low at a very low temperature at 225. And so I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I was going to go out and put my big turkey out in the smoker. And then at 3 in the morning, I'm like, it's cold out there. I'm not doing that. I'll just get up and, roast it in the oven. That'll be easy and fast. Well, then I get up and of course I can't find my roasting pan. I have no idea where it is. I haven't used it since I've been at this house. It's probably packed away in a box somewhere. I have no idea. And so then I'm like, okay, well, that plan is out. It's too late to roast the whole turkey. So I had to spatchcock the turkey. And it's so funny because that was like the word of the day yesterday. Everybody on social media is talking about spatchcocking turkeys, which I think is absolutely hilarious. But I will tell you what, it is probably the better turkey that I've cooked. It was not easy wrangling around a 23-pound turkey trying to take its backbone out, but I did. I managed to crush the breastbone and get it nice and flat and took it out into the smoker because I'm the only one around. So I had to do all of that and get that done. But you know what? It turned out really well. Hopefully yours turned out as well also. But yeah, today's Black Friday. A lot of people out shopping. Not me. No thanks. And be careful if you do shop Black Friday deals or Cyber Monday deals, especially if you're shopping online. Going to the store is one thing. Shopping online can be a whole different experience because I've been watching this for about a month now. I've been keeping track of prices of different items just out of curiosity about Black Friday sales. And I will tell you one thing, a lot of times they'll say, "Oh, look at this Black Friday deal." And they show, let's just say as an example, a carpet cleaner, if you need a carpet cleaner. I just throwing that out there. And the it's right, let's say it's regularly $200. Well, all of a sudden on Black Friday, oh, it's a $400 carpet cleaner on sale for $189. So really you're only getting $20 off, but they're wanting you to think that it's really a couple $100. So please be careful. And that's a real experience, a real item that I was looking at in which they raised it. So especially with some of these people that you deal a lot online when you're buying things online with people from other countries, China in particular. And China can tell you, these people own these businesses in China as a matter of fact, Walmart. If you go onto Walmart online and something, let's say you want to buy a set of pots and pans, it's going to give you all these different options. And a lot of them are coming from overseas. And they crazily mark up those prices on the holidays. So just please be very careful. Make sure you watch what you're buying and don't fall for any craziness. A lot of things going on today. Snow, we're expecting snow tomorrow, which is crazy. We're going to talk about that for a second. And let's see, Australia, let's see, they're banning social media for anyone under 16. We're going to go over some CEOs that have announced they're stepping down, they're resigning. Always got to ask why. Amazon strike, big deal. Lights over Washington, D.C. Did you guys see that? The lights over Washington, D.C., which is really interesting, in my opinion. A lot of people talking about that over the weekend. We're going to update on the situation with Russia and Ukraine. Most of you are probably aware that there was a mass attack yesterday on Ukraine, and we're going to get into detail about that. But Syria really stepping up into the picture right now for some reason. Syria The war in Syria has been ongoing for quite some time now. It never ended. And so we the United States have been involved in that war, and it changes under whichever administration we happen to be under, who we support in Syria. So I'll break that down just a little bit because that's going to be big in the news. We're going to see a little, depending on what happens under a Trump presidency, we're going to hopefully see Ukraine and Russia stories die down if we can get that far. And we're going to see Syria step back up into the spotlight. So that's something to keep an eye on. But something I wanted to talk about this morning, kind of right off the bat, is you guys heard me ask for prayers for Colin Brown. He was the CBC hockey player here in St. Louis, 16 years old. He passed away over the weekend. It was just a horrific situation, and I'm very angry about it, about everything that has unfolded. Here is a 16-year-old hockey player leaving his game in Afton, his hockey game, and he's heading with his father's driving through downtown, and they're right around that area of Loughborough and Highway 55. Well, unbeknownst to them, as they're driving towards Illinois, there's a rolling gun battle playing out on the other side of the highway with vehicles going the opposite direction. And one of those bullets managed to strike Colin Brown. And I'm not going to get into the injuries, but I think many of us who knew what the injuries were had a pretty good idea of how this was going to play out. And it's extremely unfortunate. And I did my best to say a prayer every day, multiple times a day, because I do believe that prayer does work. And we heard over the weekend again that Colin Brown did pass away, and that was on that would have I believe I think it was Wednesday evening, but I was really upset about it. And I'm more upset today because St. Louis St. Louis Metropolitan Police spokesperson Mitch McCoy released a statement. The story is becoming national news. By the way, it was picked up by the AP. It's going to make national news, no question about it, because it's heartbreaking. But Mitch McCoy stated it's rare for a stray bullet to hit someone in the city of St. Louis. I'm like, oh, is it A, is it rare? And B, why does that matter? Is it okay? Are these rolling gun battles okay because it's rare that someone gets struck? Bullets are flying everywhere. I mean, come on, there have been people struck on the highway, as a matter of fact, from bullets from these different gun battles. Not only that, but there have been people struck on the highway who are driving down the highway and people are shooting at each other in a neighborhood near the highway and has struck people on the highway. So don't tell me that it's rare because it doesn't matter. And I'm extremely upset about him saying that. Well, good morning, Drew, Mr. Positivity as always. Good morning, Allison and Cindy. I think it's time for the feds to step in. I don't know about you guys, but have you ever driven down an area and you had no idea where you're at? Maybe it's an area you've never been to before. You're traveling perhaps across the country and you end up, your GPS takes you through a bad neighborhood. And that happens all the time here in the city of St. Louis. Let's just say it. There are neighborhoods in St. Louis City that you really have to be very careful driving through because simply stopping at a stoplight could mean that you're going to get carjacked or robbed or worse, you could be walking through an intersection, let's say on Washington Avenue, and people fly through, or they're in some type of race going through the city, or they're shooting at each other going down Washington Avenue, and you get shot. That's happened. Or you get ran over by a car. That has happened. These things have happened. Or you're driving through, a neighborhood and you don't know what type of neighborhood this is, and you proceed to drive through an intersection when your light turns green, and guess what, you don't realize that in the city of St. Louis, in many neighborhoods, there's no regard for stoplights or stop signs. People just drive any old way they want. It doesn't matter. They don't have any regard for your life. Do you think they have a regard for a stop sign or a stop light? The answer is no. People drive through the city of St. Louis from all over the country, and you can see the license plates from different people. This is an interstate. Interstates go through the city of St. Louis that connect the east and west coasts. These people are driving through the city of St. Louis, and many of them have absolutely no idea what they're getting themselves into. They really have no idea. And Drew, they were on a major highway. Yes, Drew, they were on a major highway. And I'm very upset that a spokesperson from the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department said it's rare for someone to be shot by a stray bullet. Does it matter? Does it really matter? This kid lost his life. This family had to go through their Thanksgiving yesterday with I can't even imagine the devastation of losing a child. And that's what this family had to deal with yesterday. We have all of these kids. He played hockey with the hockey family that he had, which is a real family, by the way. Your hockey family is a real family. And these people are dealing, with this tragedy. Thank God, Colin was able to donate organs, and so others will live on in his memory. But these people shouldn't have had to deal with this. And when is it? It will happen again. It's not when. It's not an if. It is a when. It will happen again. It has happened before. It will happen again. I have personally witnessed two rolling gun battles right out by the Galleria, on Highway 40, 64 to some of you. And it's unacceptable. It's completely unacceptable. It's not okay. I don't care if it's rare for a bullet, a stray bullet to hit an innocent person. It should never happen. And I really think the feds need to step up and the feds need to do something about this. These people who get involved in these rolling gun battles, whether it's on the highway, whether it's on a street, if you're driving in your car and there's a rolling gun battle, you need to have special charges brought against you. They should be special circumstances. They should be prosecuted federally, and there should be zero exceptions, absolutely zero exceptions. We should be able, I mean, there's so few instances, I feel like these days, where we feel 100% safe, right? We should feel safe to be able to drive on the highways or to drive on the roadways. But criminals don't care, do they? They don't care. And what are they shooting at each other for anyway? Seriously? All these crazy rolling gun battles, once in a while they hit each other, most of the time they don't. But guess what you have? Bullets flying in every direction. And in this case, one of those bullets hit a 16-year-old boy. And it's disgusting. I hope that we find an arrest. I hope there is an arrest, but will there be? I'm hearing, of course, that there are tips that were called in, so maybe they have some leads. There might be some video surveillance that the police now have. Hopefully, that does lead to arrest. But most of the time, when you have these rolling gun battles or gang type shootings or stray bullets, you never find out who it is. It's just absolutely sickening. It makes me so mad. And Drew, that area is not what I call a bad neighborhood. Loughborough and 55, Drew, is pretty bad because it's right on the edge of the state streets. And we know that a lot of St. Louis crime happens in the state streets. So it's right on that edge. There's been a lot of crime that takes place at Loughborough and 55. There's that shopping center with the Schnooks. People have been carjacked and robbed in that Schnooks. So that area, in my opinion, it's not like the Ville, it's not like Fountain Park, but it is not a great area. And yes, Drew, you're right. It is a different world now, and you aren't safe anywhere. But we should be. We should have. Can we have safety nowhere? And don't you think it should be considered when you have an area of highway, let's say a stretch of highway in a certain area? Don't you think that the feds need to step in and they need to deem this area a dangerous zone? We have travel warnings when we go to different countries. Don't we have a system in this country, or, that we can't establish a system in this country where we have emergency warnings? Where if people are thinking about traveling through the United States, there can be a warning that pops up that says, be very careful if you're driving the highways, the interstates through the city of St. Louis, because there have been rolling gun battles, there have been shots fired, whatever you may want to say, gang activity. Be careful if you drive or if you're visiting the city of St. Louis because the crime rate is XXX, and they can go on to explain it. We give these warnings when you're going to visit another country, but they don't do it right here in the United States when you visit different cities. And there's a highway, I don't know the number of the highway, but it's in Arizona. We've referred to it on this show many times, where there are signs along the highway that say, do not stop, do not pick up hitchhikers, travel at your own peril, basically. Because why? Because the cartels have taken over that highway and they find people hanging from billboards there all the time. And they find bodies out in the desert in that area all the time. They find cars shot up and burned all the time. But yet, if you look on your GPS, if you're traveling, there's no warning. I really do think that we need to come up with a better system to where you have these warnings, you have these emergencies. And I wish they would do something like that in Colin Brown's name, to come up with new legislature to make sure that there is a warning system on St. Louis, at least at the very minimum on St. Louis highways, to say this area is known for high crime. If you're driving through this area, please use caution or avoid the area. I hope that that's something that we can work on. Trust me, I've suggested it to some powers that be. So I don't expect it to happen because nobody cares about safety now, do they? Allison, I feel safe in my rural community, especially with having the Washington Guard. Also true, Allison. I moved out in the middle of nowhere and I feel safe in my neighborhood. But you can't ever allow yourself to feel too safe because crime does happen everywhere, everywhere. And let's see here. Cindy, one reason why you're retiring in 2 weeks so you don't have to drive downtown. It's sad to say because there's some good businesses in downtown St. Louis. There were good businesses in downtown St. Louis. I have several friends who've had to close businesses because people don't want to go downtown. They don't want to deal with the traffic. And then I have other friends. I was downtown, what, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and I didn't have any problems, but it's a little tense because that something could happen at any time, which is really sad. And no, Drew, it probably never will happen, but it should happen. We should, if you're traveling across the country, someone should tell you when you're driving through a bad area or driving through an area in which the probability of you being shot is greater than it would be anywhere else. And let's see here. Dottie, how's everybody's turkey hangover? No kidding. Tammy, good morning, Tammy, Jerry Hoover. Hope you guys are again having a good morning. Lori, my town of Quincy is called Little Chicago. Not sure it is warranted, but it is everywhere. Yeah, I didn't know that about Quincy, but crime, no question, is everywhere. Some areas, of course, worse than others. And I wish people had warnings. I don't know. I don't think that would have saved Colin Brown's life. His family having known that the city's dangerous. I'm pretty sure his dad was very well aware of the crime in St. Louis City. But what can you do? We can't just stay at home in fear. We have to get out, and I guess we just have to hope that we're not next. But trust me, it could be any of us. It could be any of us. Don't think it can't be. And no, Drew, you can't live your life being afraid. And yes, God always is in control, but you do at least need to use some precaution if at all possible. So, here's another thing: more precaution, more fear, snow. I am fearful of snow. And we are supposed to have some snow. If you live in the St. Louis region, some of you already have snow. Glesna, you probably have snow. Dottie, you probably have some snow. But we are heading into a snowy period tomorrow. I haven't heard all of the weather details. I know that area around Mexico, Missouri, I don't think any of you live out that way. They're going to get potentially 3 inches or more if you're in the other surrounding area. I think the line kind of cuts off out here where I'm at in central Illinois, but 1 inch, probably 1 to 2 inches out my way. St. Louis City, probably about 1 inch. From what I hear, you folks out there in O'Fallon, Missouri, or Wentzville in that area might get 1 to 2 inches. So we'll see how it goes. I know I'm not ready for snow. I don't know if you guys are. I am definitely not ready for snow. I'm not ready for cold weather. I've got to go outside today and finish winterizing my chicken coop. I've got to get the boat winterized. I haven't done a darn thing. And so I'm way too busy, way too busy. But so those are some things on my agenda getting ready for the snow. Make sure, guys, I know you know this, please make sure that your tires are suitable for traveling over ice and snow because those days are coming faster than we know it. Thankfully at least tomorrow's Saturday. Hopefully if it does snow, I know I'm not leaving the house. Hopefully the rest of you can do the same and kind of take it easy. But of course everybody's going to be out shopping, right? Not me, not me. Did you guys hear about the lights over Washington? I'm notoriously not able to share photos on my show, but I'm going to do my best to show this to you. And somebody said that this isn't the first time. Let me see if I can pop this up here. Oh, yeah, it did work today. I don't know what's going on here, and I don't have a lot of context. But what I am told and what I've been reading is these lights were unexplainable. There is video, there is, other photos. None of them really showed much more than this. These are not helicopters, allegedly. They're allegedly not airplanes. So what are they? I don't know, but this has been spreading quite a bit over the weekend where you can see those there. There's what, four lights here, and then let's see. Well, it looks like there's some more in the background. I can't really tell. Maybe that's something different, but you can see how they are up here over the Capitol building. I don't know what's going on. It doesn't mean anything. Does it not mean anything? I don't know. I think it's interesting though that it's happened right there in Washington, D.C. If you go online and look at what people are saying, there's some really crazy theories out there about what these lights are. I mean, I don't know. I'm one of those people where I kind of tend to dismiss things because I always think, well, it's probably helicopters, it's probably airplanes, it's probably drones or something. If I had to guess, I would say that this is probably some type of drone or something that is offering protection to the White House because we know right now there's so much going on. There's a lot of threats taking place right now against the United States from different entities and not just Russia, from a lot of different entities out there. So I'm going to side with this is something explainable and not UFOs, but you guys can think whatever you want to about it. Good morning, Kim, and good morning, Pam. Yes, Allison, I think they are probably drones. I don't know though. I don't know. So that was something that I came across. It was pretty interesting. And there's a light blinking behind me, and I can't figure out what it is. I don't know, you guys probably can't see that. So anyway, I'm sure you guys heard there was a lot going on over yesterday. I keep thinking yesterday was a weekend. There was a lot going on yesterday and the day before. There's a lot of members of Congress who are being swatted, who are having bomb threats called upon them. And it's not just Republicans. We heard about a lot of it's Democrats too. We've all heard about the Republicans. Now, I don't know who these people are. So obviously, I'm not guilty. Joe Courtney, let's see here. John, I wish I could read my own writing. John Lars, does that sound right? And then Jonathan Hayes, Johanna Hayes. Sorry about that. I write out my notes really fast. I can't even read my own writing. That's what kind of day I'm going to have today. So there are people out there getting bomb threats, having swatting incidents, and lots of other things taking place besides Republicans. We know it's been happening to Republicans. Matt Gaetz, I think he had a swatting incident. He had a bomb threat. It's simply just chaos. These are people who want to cause chaos. It's probably Antifa or a group like Antifa like people. And the reason why is because they don't like Democrats any more than they like Republicans. So they are going to go out and create chaos on both sides. A lot of people want to refer to Antifa as Democrats, but they're really not. They started out as Sanders supporters, but they are truly people who don't want any side of the government to win. They don't want anyone. They don't like government at all. And what they will do, just like any terror organization, is they will lend their services to the highest bidder. So, therefore, the Soros types in our world, when they go and pay these groups, of course, they'll go out and cause trouble and throw bricks and frozen bottles of water and vandalize and arson, create incidents of arson. Of course, they're going to do that because they're getting paid to do it, but they're not Democrats. So, of course, they're going to come out and threaten Democrats, Republicans, likewise. So, that was also another big thing that I saw yesterday. There was a lot going on for one day. There was a lot going on for one day. Amazon planned a strike that is going to be today through Cyber Monday. And, of course, I don't know what Amazon workers make, but they're trying to follow, from what I hear, the footsteps of UPS and FedEx and some of these other drivers who have gone on strikes for higher wages, better benefits, and so on. So if you're looking for a package to be delivered right away, you might expect a delay with Amazon being on strike for the next couple of days. So that's again from today and through Cyber Monday. They're going to be striking and primarily just in larger cities, not necessarily all of their offices. And you know, I remember the days of overnight packaging. I don't know if it's just because I'm in a rural area now, I even before I moved here, it was kind of getting to the point where you used to be able to order something from Amazon, and you could have it delivered that day or the next day. It was always, and I had Amazon Prime, which I canceled, but the services are not the same as what they used to be, at least in my opinion. So I don't really care what Amazon does. Pam, I have been getting horrible service with Amazon lately. Yeah, Pam, I agree. But that includes for me FedEx and UPS, all of them. Absolutely all of them. And Pam says she learned a hell of a lesson about tires last year when she ended up in a ditch. Understandable. Because that's always something on my mind. Even though I have a Jeep, nothing can protect you if you're on ice. If you guys may remember back when I was on the edge, I slid down the hill right there on Lake St. Louis Boulevard. And I mean, everyone else was sliding too. And, I have a Jeep, but when it's solid ice, there is nothing that can keep you on the road. And Allison says they never deliver on the date they tell you. They don't. They used to. I think they started out good, but then all of a sudden everything just went downhill. And I don't know what that's about. If it's the drivers, I know that there's some really good drivers out there for these delivery services, but there are also some we all know who do not do a very fantastic job. We'll see people that throw packages. There are people, if you've seen these videos, thank God for Ring cameras, right? Where these workers will pull up, they'll put your package on your door, take a photo of it, and then take the package back with them. And like, okay, don't you realize that people have cameras these days? Most people have cameras. I know when I was out canvassing in Georgia, one of the things that I was always very leery of and, tried to be very careful is that a lot of times I would walk up to a door where no one was home and they would have packages. And some of these would be very rural areas, some of them were neighborhoods. And I was always so cautious because I wanted to make sure that no one thought I was there to take their package. I like the last thing I want to do is be canvassing, knocking on somebody's door, trying to get the vote out for Donald Trump and someone shoot me because they think I'm there to take their packages. So I always try to stay really far away. Good morning, Patty. But I will tell you one thing, when I was out canvassing, there's a lot of people who get packages. I would say probably more doors than not had packages sitting there, and who knows how long. I went to one house where there were groceries sitting on the step. And I kind of wondered about it because the groceries looked like they had been there for a really long time. And there's nothing you could do. I'm not going to knock on the door and tell people they have groceries, or you just don't get involved. It's not your business. But it is an interesting thing. That's one thing when you canvas. If you guys ever have the opportunity to canvas, absolutely do it because there are so many things you learn, just humanity lessons in general, and it gives you a good idea of how people live and how people do things, and just the day to it's a good way to get in and look at the day to day activity of other people. We get so caught up in our own world. It's pretty interesting when you think about other people and how busy they are, or elderly people. And so many of them were so happy to see us because they hadn't had any visitors, in a really long time. So please, there's going to be a lot of canvassing opportunities out there in the future, especially with America Pack. So make sure you guys check those out. There's several CEOs have stepped down in the past 24 hours. And I'm just going to go through this very short list here. And remember, I told you guys, and I'm sure you've heard in other places too, keep an eye out for CEOs stepping down. And yes, it's not unusual for CEOs to step down at the end of the year because a lot of times, especially publicly traded companies, some of the times these people know they're on their way out. And so therefore they step down. So you can't necessarily read anything into this. But at the same time, I always keep an eye on the list because I do think with some of these people, there is more to the story. So Q Casino, I'm not even familiar with Q Casino in Las Vegas. Their CEO, Alex Dixon, stepped down. Subway CEO. This one kind of surprised me. John Chidsey stepped down of Subway. I wish I'd get Subway in order, by the way. I used to like Subway. Now that place is just a mess. Kohl's CEO stepped down. Tom Kingsbury. I've certainly heard his name. I'm sure most of you have. Tom Kingsbury. Publix, the grocery store Publix CEO, Paul Ruppert has stepped aside. Airlink CEO Roger Foster has stepped aside. I think we're going to see a lot of people stepping aside. And there's a lot of different things people are going to speculate about different types of resignations. We have the Epstein list being hopefully released once Trump takes office. We're going to learn a lot more about Diddy and his list, which I really think the Diddy lists are going to be more explosive than the Epstein list. And for different reasons, but yet the same reasons. Because Epstein, as we know, Epstein and Ghislaine, they were both charged with trafficking, correct? And who did they traffic to? We all know, of course. Who did they traffic to? Where are the clients? Why don't we know the clients' names? If you can throw people in jail because they were trafficking, particularly minors, who are they trafficking them to? So those names are extremely important. Trump has already said he is going to release those names. Another reason why there's a very giant target on his back, of course. And I expect a lot of people to step down because of that. But then when we get into the P. Diddy situation, that's a whole different situation, but just as criminal. And in a way, is it worse? There's a lot of people talking about one of his former bodyguards even made this statement that those bottles of baby oil, what did he have? Thousands of bottles of baby oil, that it's really not baby oil, it's GHB. It looks like baby oil, but it's GHB. And that's pretty crazy if that's the case. And I am sure when this eventually goes to court, we'll find out. There's a lot of people who think this is bigger than Diddy, that there's so much more to it than just him. But, I think I've seen enough videos, I've heard enough statements from people, in his inner circle to get a good idea of who is involved and what exactly took place. I watched some videos early this morning when I woke up, and there's no point in getting in names because it's all speculation, of course, but they keep talking about rituals, that these are rituals. And the premise that I'm hearing most often, which means there's probably truth to it, is that multiple people have made videos, multiple people have given statements saying that I was a rapper or I was a singer, I wasn't very good, but yet I was given this opportunity because they liked my branding. They thought they could sell me. It wasn't about my music, it wasn't about my voice. It was because they thought they could sell me. And so, therefore, if you want to rise to fame, if you want fame and fortune, if you want your music to be published, if you want your music to be played, then you have to go along with what these people want. And I was listening this morning to a video where a man was explaining the ritualism of what took place, of how these people, Diddy himself and other music label folks, would bring these guys in. Guys, okay? These aren't girls, they're guys. Very rarely is it a female, it's usually young boys. And they're bringing them in and they're taking them to these parties every weekend, they said, every single weekend. And each time they get more bold. And eventually they make that proposal that, hey, this is what you need to do. And if you don't do this, obviously, I'm sure you can leave it to your imagination what that is. And these are not necessarily gay men, from the interviews that I'm hearing. It's about power and control. Diddy. I mean, is Diddy gay? No, I don't think he's gay. Bisexual, probably. But yet here he is bringing these young men into these situations, forcing them to have allegedly forcing them into having sexual relationships with him and with other people in his entourage, other people part of his record label. This is really big. And I don't know why more people don't talk about it, because it's absolutely, absolutely huge. Drew says, I guarantee you those names won't be released. Diddy will be among the unalive. That's probably true, Drew. But I don't know. If Trump takes office in January, which we expect him to, I really do think a lot of these names are absolutely going to be released. I think there's going to be a lot of things we need to find out. And Allison, I think Kamala needs to join AA. Allison, I was going to play that video of Kamala Harris talking, and I hate to say it, but I can't stand the sound of her voice. It's nothing personal against her, but I cannot stand the sound of her voice. Why do they allow her to release videos like that? Why do they allow her to freely speak? I don't get it. I really don't get it. Because if it were me and I was in charge of things, I'd be like, haven't we harmed ourselves enough? And here she's talking about running in 2028. Or does she really think more people are going to vote for her in 2028 than they did this time? I'm sure you guys have heard reports of final election results. It took some of these states, it took them 20 days to count their ballots. 20 days. And how much cheating went into this, I do not know on the Democrat side. But what I do know is that after all the ballots were counted, even the bluest of blue states turned a little bit more red. I would call them pink. They're not 100% red, but they are pink. Even states like California, New York, Illinois, even some of those states which I would never think would be pink up in the eastern section of the East Coast, or up in the, sorry, northern section of the East Coast, pink. You know, Trump overwhelmingly got votes, and he won over so many counties in all of these blue states. It is unbelievable. And I don't see how any Democrat could step forward and actually think they're going to win in 2028. In fact, that's why I think they're coming after Trump so hard, because I think they know that if they allow Trump into the White House on January 20th, they will never again attain power. It will never happen. They will never be let back in. Because if Trump gets this second chance, as he should, if he gets the second chance, I can guarantee you he is going to make he is going to make not only our country an amazing place, but the entire world. He's talking peace. I know that I've been a little bit concerned about some of the statements I'm hearing. You guys may have seen my social media posts about it. Some of the statements I'm hearing about Ukraine. And I think I finally got some clarification on Trump and his policy regarding Ukraine and Russia. It's been largely stated that he obviously wants to create peace. And as part of that peace plan, what was stated in the beginning is that he would allow Russia to take that 30% or so, which I'll tell you what, Russia is gaining every day. They're gaining more territory every single day. And they gained a lot of territory in the past week. But a lot of people do believe that Trump will allow Russia to keep what they have already taken, and then he will allow Zelensky to remain in power for what's left of Ukraine. And then Ukraine will become part of NATO, which is, of course, what Zelensky wants. So I think he sees that as a win win situation. We'll give Russia what they want. They'll take that area where they have the Russian speaking citizens, where all these skirmishes have been taking place over the past 8 years. His reason for allegedly, of course, invading into the Ukraine territory. And then we're going to give Zelensky what he wants, which is NATO membership. But there's a lot of other things unfolding now. The majority of citizens in Ukraine no longer support Zelensky. Many of them don't want to be part of NATO. And so that's something that's kind of happening on the horizon. And because of that, there's a lot of talk that that part of Ukraine is going to be broken up to where Poland gets a section, Germany gets a section, the UK gets a section. So that's something that's also being discussed, is just breaking up Ukraine in general, because the people there largely no longer want Zelensky to be their president. But then we have, Russia on the other side. Is Russia going to be happy with just taking that 30% and calling it, calling it even and calling for peace? So what I clarified a little bit yesterday on Trump's policy and going forward is that he is going to broker every possible peace deal he can with Russia. And if for some reason Putin will not accept the deal that Donald Trump works out, then we under Donald Trump are going to side with Ukraine. And at that point, Trump is going to continue on the plan of bolstering Ukraine against Russia. Now, whether that happens, this is all just in talks right now. I don't know if it's going to happen, but this is what I'm hearing. This is what I expect to be his policy. And I'm not really sure exactly right now how I feel about it. I don't want to support Ukraine. I don't want to continue giving money to Ukraine, whether it's under Donald Trump or anyone else. I don't. And I don't know how we're going to deal with that, because if we get to the situation where we cannot broker a deal, a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine, then what choice do we have? We have to side with one country or the other, and then what? I don't want to side with Russia. I don't want to side with Ukraine. I just want peace. So when it comes down to it, is Trump making the right decision if he in fact does continue to support Ukraine against Russia? Because as I've said many times, I don't think we could win a war against China, Russia, India. India testing their nuclear weapons, by the way, this week. I don't think we could win the war. It's sad to say that, because I have absolute faith in our country and in our military. However, we have not been bolstering our defense systems in the same way that Russia does. Now, there's a lot of propaganda that could be out there, but Russia, of course, is saying that they have, I think it's like 10 times the amount of missiles that we have. That while we've been so distracted with our election and all of the craziness that's going on within our own country, dealing with people crossing our southern border and just everything that we're doing here, while we've been distracted doing all that, they've been building up their military arsenal. Is it true? I don't know. Russia's economy is doing far better than ours are. Allison, I believe he will negotiate a deal. I know Trump will do his best, and Putin claims he'll do his best, and I see a lot of positivity certainly going on there. And Allison says there's cheating going on about I'm sorry, I don't see all of your comments. Something about immigration status to vote. Well, we're going to have, under a Trump presidency, we're certainly going to have voter ID required in every single state. I see it happening. Cindy, I don't know if you already talked about it, but I just saw that Mark Zuckerberg went to Florida and met with Trump a couple days ago. Yes, and I'm going to talk about that. I have not talked about it yet, Cindy, but I do plan to. And because there's a lot to be said about that. Drew, would you let someone that took half of your house let them keep it? It's common sense. Well, Drew, it's not really common sense because I kind of tried to explain this the other day. I'm not very good with analogies, like my former co-host Eric Johnson is. The man's a master with analogies. But what happened, the reason why Russia went into Ukraine, and they had warned for many years that they were going to make this incursion into Ukraine, is because fighting in that region had been going on for 8 years. For 8 years, possibly longer, they were fighting back and forth against the border. Ukraine and Ukrainian troops and the Azov battalion, they were constantly launching rockets, and there were firefights on the border into that area of Russia. And the people who lived in what is now this 30% that Russia has taken over, these people were kind of prisoners in their own community. And I've said this before, in Mariupol, the Azov battalion, they actually built a trench around the entire city. These people could not leave their city, and they're Russian speaking people. They were considered Russian sympathizers, and Ukrainians, not Ukrainians, the people. The government under Zelensky, they despise Russia and anything Russian, including Russian people, people who speak Russian, people who sympathize with Russia. And so for the past, I guess it's 2 weeks now, the government under Zelensky, they have been removing any sign of Russia. They've been taking down monuments. They allegedly are burning down churches. I can't guarantee that that's true. And they are going around, they're asking for citizens to turn in literature, any books that are written in Russian. They are asking you to turn those in. They said they're going to recycle them, and they're offering some type of deal to people, the citizens. If you bring your Russian language books into certain, business centers, they will give you, I think it's like a free heating pad. I don't know. Maybe heating pads are something that's a big deal over there. And Ryan's, good morning, Ryan. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving as well. So there's a lot that went place, took place over just one day yesterday. As a matter of fact, Russia launched their offensive against Ukraine. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about this just because there's really not a whole lot new to say, but I'm just going to go over what is new. And there's a lot going on over the world. The whole world's crazy right now. So Russia launched a huge offensive against Ukraine yesterday. Think about this. This is crazy. 800 air-guided bombs, 800, 460 drones, and 20 missiles of various types, mostly being the Caliber missiles. They have not fired the Oreshnik again. They only fired the Oreshnik missile once. Now, they claim they may use it again. Russia is making statements that they may use the Oreshnik again against the decision-making centers of Kiev. That if they do that, that's a huge escalation. I think Putin will think that through very clearly. But Putin did make some statements about Donald Trump, which I thought was interesting. I'm going to play this for you. It's just a very short little clip here with Vladimir Putin. Let's see here.
President Trump, a smart and experienced person, will come up with a solution, especially given that he has gone through quite an ordeal of fighting to reclaim the Oval Office. But I think President Trump is a smart person and a cautious one, I hope.
I hope a cautious one too. And Putin went on to talk about how he believes that Donald Trump's life is still being threatened, that there's still a high probability that something could happen to him because he knows that the Democrat regime does not want Donald Trump to take over the country because it's so much bigger than just a presidential election. It is an entire change of every element of our government and how this country is run. It is so much bigger than just an election. It is about after decades of Democrat control, whether you have a Republican president or not, we have been under Democrat regime control on the backside. We all know that the shadow government, the deep state, the cabal. whatever you want to call them. And so it is not just a foot in the door, it's a leg in the door for change. So I think we all know how most feel about that. And here in the United States, so many people don't get what this is all about. But what's interesting, if you read foreign news, especially foreign leaders, they understand. Other world leaders totally understand what's happening here in the United States. They see it as a change of power, not as an election, not as it going from Biden to Trump, not Trump beating Kamala Harris. It is us, the will of the people, finally toppling the power that be, the people that have run this country for decades. That's how other world leaders see it. And they know that everything's going to change. Everything's going to change. And they are right. Good morning, Amy. So here's some different things that are going on because I just want to touch on the most important parts of Ukraine and Russia. You guys are probably here tired of even talking about it, but it's the most important thing that's happening in our country right now. A lot of people I know, want to stick to local news, what's happening in my own community. And I know I focus a lot on foreign news. And that is because what happens in our own community, of course, is very important. But what happens on a global scale is more important because if we end up in World War III, which we're technically already in, well, none of what happens in our local community matters quite as much, except for, of course, gun legislation. That's a big deal. So here's some different things that are going on. NATO is deploying, already deploying. Think about this. When you hear it on the news, on mainstream news, it's already happened. They don't tell you it's going to happen. By the time they report it to you, it has already happened, and everybody in the world knows it's happened except for you. If you watch mainstream news, do not count on mainstream news as your only news source. So NATO has already deployed training centers into the Ukraine. Those are supposed to train at least a million mobilized Ukrainians, which is interesting because right now Ukraine doesn't even have a million people to mobilize. They're going to raise the conscription age to 18, or it's lower, I should say, to 18, so they can get that, those extra people into the military. But they have had 90,000 deserters. Ukraine made a big mistake because they're so desperate to keep people out on the battlefield that they told their soldiers, if you desert your battalion and then come back, you won't be penalized. You will not be charged. Just come back. So what that did is that gave a lot of these troops the idea that if they just wanted to take a break, they could leave and then come back without facing any type of penalty. So large numbers left, 90,000 in fact, have left. Now, most of them are expected to return, but as of right now, there are 90,000 deserters in the Ukrainian military, which is a very large number, and they're desperate to get people. I talked about this the other day. They're trying to recruit mercenaries from other countries to coming in. They are bringing in the medically ill. In I don't know how this law works in the United States, but in Ukraine, if you have HIV, you cannot fight in combat. Well, there's 367,000 people in Ukraine that are HIV positive, and they're have a plan together to call those people up, elderly, disabled. They're disregarding any letter people have that say they're not physically able to go into battle. Now, from what I understand, the people who are mentally not able, they have not yet started bringing them into the front lines, but it certainly is going to happen. And Drew says Russia's using North Korea. They absolutely are. Russia has a lot of other mercenaries. Both sides have mercenaries. Ukraine is not doing anything different than Russia or any other country would do. It's just a fact that they've had nearly a million of their soldiers killed in this battle, and therefore they're running out of people. They're simply running out. And it's finally making its way to mainstream news. I saw we've been talking about it here for 2 weeks now, and it's finally starting to make its way to mainstream news. But once you hear something again in mainstream news, it's already happened. It's way past its point. So I don't know who these million mobilized Ukrainians are going to be, but apparently NATO's going to train them. So that's an escalation. NATO also working with of course, Western military industrial companies demanding investments in sending specialists and equipment to Ukraine. And what they are doing is they're trying to make deals with private contractors, and they're trying to have private contractors send weapons over, so that it's not necessarily part of the government, it's private contractors. As an example, and I'm just using this as an example, Ukraine is attempting to make deals, let's say with Lockheed Martin directly, rather than going through the United States government. Is it going to happen? I don't know, and it's more NATO doing this more so than Ukraine. And of course, the UK has $300 billion of Russians' assets frozen, and they're thinking about unfreezing these assets. They've unfroze 18 billion just in the past couple days they're going to send to Ukraine, but they're thinking about unfreezing so much more. Amy, I don't think you can be deployed if you have HIV or any type of mental illness in our military. Yeah, Amy, I don't think so either. But I think in times of desperation, they'll start pulling people out of the woodwork, which is exactly what's happening in Ukraine. 360, again, 7,000 people in Ukraine with HIV that they are calling up to the front lines. And we're this one is not surprising. The number is a little bit less than what is being talked about. That we being NATO, has already deployed 100,000 peacekeepers into Ukraine, and that would be your typical NATO troops. We've heard numbers; they've been bouncing around 800,000 NATO troops going into Ukraine, and from what I'm understanding, there are 100,000 NATO troops already either in Ukraine or on their way to Ukraine. That stuff is highly confidential, so we may not know that they're already there until it is reported as so, but that is one of their plans. And then outside of that, this is kind of crazy. This is how they want to break up Ukraine, provided if Putin does not want to agree to peace and Ukraine is not able to join NATO. What they're looking to do at the end of all of this is they want to give the capital region around Kiev, they're going to give that to Great Britain, the east of the country to Germany, the western regions to Poland, and then the Black Sea coast to Romania. So these are NATO plans. These are not Putin's plans. These are not Zelensky's plans. These are NATO plans. And you can't tell me that these things haven't been thought of for a long time, right? And I didn't hear any regions going to the United States, but keep in mind that we control Europe. And some people say Europe controls us. The deep state, it's all the same. They control everything the United States does. They control everything that Europe does, and they control everything that's happening in Ukraine. And again, whether you want to call them a deep state or a cabal or a shadow government, it is all one and the same. Those people control everything under the NATO umbrella, except for Turkey. Turkey seems to be doing its own thing, and Turkey is going to have to, people are calling on Turkey and, of course, Turkey's President Erdogan to make some decisions, because while there's a war going on in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, there's also a war going on over in Syria, between Russia and Syria. The official Syrian government are on the same side versus the United States and terrorists. It's kind of crazy to think that we are part of the terrorist group, but we are. We are. And that's highly unfortunate. Zelensky made a statement, by the way, over the weekend, and that guy's lost his mind. So basically, he relayed this statement to a local newspaper in Ukraine, and this was what was written. And it says the office of the president has revealed that Zelensky will continue missile strikes on Russian territory despite Kremlin threats to leave Ukraine without electricity. For Bankova Street, it is crucial to escalate tensions ahead of Trump's return, making it harder for Putin to pursue compromises. The president's office is confident it can endure the winter with minimal losses to energy systems, as all weapon production facilities are connected to autonomous power stations. Because yesterday, when Russia so heavily struck Ukraine, they were primarily taking out their power sources. And, outside of that, I can't really say there's a whole lot going on. We, the United States, this, certainly I believe in escalation on our part. We have decided that, remember how we've talked about this a little bit on the show, how the Biden administration is considering what they call returning nuclear weapons to Ukraine. Well, I think they've put a halt to that process, at least for now. However, now the new game plan is that they're going to send nuclear weapons to Poland, to the Indo-Pacific region, and more importantly, to Anderson Air Force Base. They're going to start at Anderson Air Force Base, returning nuclear weapons. And this is not going to go over very well with any of the BRICS countries. They want to restore nuclear weapons to Korea, Australia, and then various military bases in the Pacific Ocean. So we'll see how all of that plays out. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot going on. A lot of people think that this Oreshnik missile has really changed everything, everything. And you're going to hear, if you go out and you start seeing references to the hazel tree or to hazelnuts, what they're referring to is the Oreshnik missile, because the Russian name for hazel tree, hazel being a hazelnut, it's actually where my last name comes from. Hassel is named from the hazel tree. And so there's a lot of people out talking in code about hazel tree, hazelnuts, and so on. Well, when they refer to that, they're really talking about this Oreshnik missile. And it's kind of interesting hearing all of the talk about the hazel tree. So, and the reason why this missile was named after the hazel tree is because the wood of the hazel tree is apparently very strong and the nuts are impenetrable, uh, from what they say. I don't know. There's a lot of talk about hazelnuts in general, which everybody should have hazelnut trees, by the way. That's a whole another story. So this Oreshnik missile, think about this. It's 4,000 degrees Celsius, which averages a little bit around 7,000 degrees Fahrenheit, is the heat that this Oreshnik missile puts out. Think about that. It has technically 6 warheads, but each warhead has separate warheads. So it's technically 36 warheads striking a certain area. That the heat alone is enough to completely vaporize concrete, melt steel beams. It's pretty serious. And so I think a lot of people think now with Russia displaying this Oreshnik missile that the war is over. The news agencies, foreign news, they have already moved on. It's crazy. As crazy as that sounds, they are already moving on. And I laugh all the time about how the media can be so fickle. But I'm seeing it with my own eyes. Once again, I've seen it many times since I've been, studying news and doing research. They move on long before the rest of us do. And I already see the switch taking place. I think that foreign news believes that Trump will become president, that he will create a deal of peace between Russia and Ukraine, and that situation will resolve itself. The media in foreign countries has already moved on. All I'm hearing about, all these back channels that I study and research and read and talk to people, they're all talking about Syria. you know, no one's even really talking about Russia anymore. And I think if Putin does step up and he does send another Oreshnik missile of course, into Kiev, then it's going to be right back to where we were talking about nuclear war and other things going on. But we can't forget that there is another battle that's still taking place in Syria and has been going on for a really long time. I don't know why the Syria all of a sudden is coming to the forefront again when we feel like we're on the edge of a nuclear war, World War III between Russia and Ukraine. I don't know why everybody's all automatically switched to Syria. We've been in a war over in Syria for quite some time, and of course, it's very complicated. It is very complicated. In under Obama, and you guys know the story because I've said it a bazillion times. Under Obama, we went into Syria illegally. In order for you to be part of a war, you have to do so legally. A country has to ask you to come in and participate in their war. Well, of course, Syria is very wealthy in oil. And so we took it upon ourselves many years ago to get involved in Syrian politics. And we've had our troops stationed at these different oil fields now for quite some time. And when Obama was our president, we went into Syria with the disguise that we were there to help the Syrian government to keep the terrorists from taking over. Remember when ISIS was attempting to establish their caliphate in Syria? Well, that battle it's still going on. We don't talk about it as much, but it's still going on. And so what's happening now and why there is this escalation of talk is I really do think that people have taken their focus off of what's going on in Ukraine and Russia because I'm watching things in Syria and yes, things are heating up, but there's really nothing going on there that I see anyway that hasn't been going on this entire time except for Biden allegedly, and I've not heard this on any mainstream news, But apparently, the Biden administration has stepped up, their payments to these different insurgent groups in Syria. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But under Obama, of course, we went in. We had the Operation Timber Sycamore, where we were supposed to be there, our troops, keeping ISIS at bay. We were supposed to be assisting the Syrian government, when in fact, it was a total lie. What we were really doing is hiring what Obama called moderate terrorists in Syria to fight against the Syrian government in an effort to get rid of Assad. And let me tell you something about Bashir al Assad. He is the president, of course, of Syria. And I'm not saying he's a great guy, just like I'm not saying Putin's a great guy. But Assad, they desperately want him out of that position. Why? Because we, the United States, we're always on the wrong side. I hope you guys know that. Under Democrats, we, the United States, we're always on the wrong side. And so, therefore, Bashir al Assad, this guy, he didn't even want to be president. His father was president. And then when his father passed away unexpectedly, his brother became president. Assad, he lived in London. He didn't ever expect to be president of Syria, didn't want to be president of Syria. He was in London and he was going to school to be an optometrist. He became an optometrist in London. He's out having fun, living his life in London. Well, then his brother unexpectedly passed away in a car accident. So then Assad got involved in Syrian politics. He kind of followed the family line. And are the elections in Syria any more fair than they are here? I don't know. There's a lot of people who say they're not. And Obama felt that Assad should not have been the legal president of Syria, despite the fact that people voted for him. And therefore, Obama took it upon himself to pretend that we were going to Syria to fight against the Syrian government, when really what we were doing is trying to take over their oil fields with the help of terrorists. And so Obama paid through the CIA, through Timber Sycamore. We were training, our special operations forces were training, supplying terrorists, al Nusra terrorists, with weapons, with money, of course, cash, and all in an attempt to oust Assad, which is crazy. Assad is the only thing keeping Syria from becoming a powder keg of terrorism. That is the truth. Just like in Iraq. Remember, in Iraq, Saddam Hussein was not a great guy by any means, but Saddam was the only the only thing keeping Iraq in check. That was it. And look what happened when we went in with the guise of weapons of mass destruction, because this is our pattern as a country under Democrats, right? We went into Iraq with this, oh, they have weapons of mass destruction, which they didn't have. And we ousted Saddam, and of course he was killed. That'll happen to Putin as well if Putin doesn't do what we want him to do. And Putin knows that, which of course is why he will fight literally to the death. And the same goes for Assad. Assad is the only thing keeping that country from becoming an absolute powder keg of terrorism. It is. And he is an Alawite. He's an Alawite. He's not a Sunni. 99% of terror groups in the world are Sunni Muslims. That is the truth. And I'm not saying Sunni Muslims, people in your community, are terrorists. I'm not saying that. But 99% of all terror groups are Sunni. Okay, so Assad in Syria fights against the Sunni. He keeps the Sunni at bay. He's an Alawite. In Syria, okay, the people, it's a non-secular government. The people in Syria celebrate Christmas and they celebrate Easter. Assad himself celebrates Easter. He celebrates Christmas. Well, they don't want that. You know that. The terrorists do not want that. They want the entire world to be just like them. They want the entire world to be Muslim, and they will not stop at anything until it is. And that's what this is about over in Syria. So when you hear these stories, all this is about is Muslims taking over, Sunni Muslims taking over the entire world, because we all know that's what they want to do. And these terror groups are in Syria. They've been there for a long time, fighting back and forth, with the Syrian government. Well, Russia got involved. When Russia got involved, it changed everything. Russia started coming into Syria. They were invited into Syria to fight for the Syrian government. And they came in, and that is when we saw a real change in what was taking place. They took all of these terrorists, ISIS, other different types of, Army of Islam. There were so many different terror groups over in Syria, and they chased them, most of them, into Turkey. They allowed them to have safe package. Erdogan did into Turkey. This is more I can talk about in one show, so I'm just going to try to sum it up best I can. You're going to hear a lot about Syria in the news, and you're going to hear about the new battlefront between the United States and Russia. But think about this. Our role in Syria is a proxy role to some degree, although we have certainly, obviously, did have troops in Syria. Now, when Donald Trump became president, he ended Timber Sycamore. He stopped funding the terrorists, and he allowed Russia to step in and fight the terrorists. We started fighting the terrorists. We actually went there, and Trump changed policy to make sure we were there for the right reasons. Now we have Biden that steps in. Biden goes right back to supporting terrorists, Sunni terrorists that are inside Syria and who are now fighting against Russia. So not only are we fighting against Russia in Ukraine, we are fighting against Russia in Syria also. So that's going to come to more of the forefront. But in my opinion, nothing has really changed. This is what's been happening the entire time from Obama, changed a little bit in Trump, back under Biden. But if we can't fight Russia, if Trump wants to create peace with Russia in Ukraine, then guess what? We're going to move the battle over to Syria. So keep an eye on that. Don't fall for the propaganda. There will be lots of propaganda. Trust me, you're going to start hearing it. Just wait. Syria, Syria, Syria. It's all you're going to hear because they've got to step up the propaganda somehow because we've pretty much lost billions of dollars over in Ukraine for Trump to come in and create peace. So we'll see. We'll see. A couple different things. We're either going to end up in a war, a very serious war, or somehow Trump is going to make it to president and he's going to end that. And then we're going to see Syria again come to the forefront. Patty says, when I was in Europe, the locals told me that Americans are only interested in sex stories of our elected officials. We have no idea that our government is meddling in other countries' governments and causing problems. We are, the world largely views us as the terrorists. In fact, there is uprisings taking place all across the world because people don't want to join NATO. These countries don't want to join NATO. Russia, Putin went and spoke. There was a forum in Africa, 54 countries in Africa. And of course, South Africa is already part of BRICS. 54 countries in Africa went to this forum. Well, guess what resulted in that forum? These countries want to join BRICS now. As a matter of fact, the country of Senegal, they have told France that they have to remove all of their French embassies from Senegal because they're going to join BRICS. That's why. It is going to be BRICS against the rest of us, BRICS against NATO. I don't know who you feel safer under. Do you feel safer under NATO? Do you feel safer under BRICS? Would you feel safer as an independent country that's not part of BRICS or NATO? But the world is dividing. It is absolutely dividing. It is coming down to choosing one or the other. The country of Georgia, if you're familiar with the country of Georgia, massive uprisings. I was going to play a video of that. I don't know if we have time, but I'm going to try to throw this in there really quick because it's crazy. This is what's happening. It's not the political divide is just not in the United States. It's happening all over the world. This is the country of Georgia and some protests they have on there. What's happening there is that their government is delaying entry into the European Union. Their country is divided. Half of the country wants to go to NATO, wants to go and join the European Union, and then half of the country wants to join BRICS. And so therefore what's going on is the government they have in place right now has delayed entry into the European Union until 2028, when these people really thought that they were going to join the European Union in 2025. Well, that's not going to happen because the government of Georgia, the country, of course, is leaning towards BRICS. The world is dividing. You're either for BRICS or against it. You're either for NATO or against it. In the World War III that we're going to face is going to be BRICS against NATO. And I really think people need to start thinking who do you, not that it matters, we can't do a darn thing about it. Who do you feel safest under? Do you feel safest as part of NATO or for part of BRICS? And I'm asking that question because I don't feel very safe right now, thinking that I have to depend on NATO to protect me, because I don't think that they'll be a do a very good job of it. We'll talk about it on Monday. We'll see what happens over the weekend, of course. Will Rothschild, did you guys hear that Will Rothschild, of course, the Rothschild, allegedly died in a fire in Hollywood Hills on Thanksgiving morning? It was one of the first things I saw when I woke up. And there's a lot of talk about that on the internet, but I've not seen anything in mainstream media. And some of the neighbors described Will Rothschild as being very reclusive. They said he lived at this house alone. They never saw him. He lived there. He was coming in and out. He worked, I think he did some electrical work and different things, in part of some really major films. So, he did work, but he is certainly part of the Rothschild family. And there's a lot of talk. I don't believe it's true, but there's a lot of talk, people online, of course, in these Q groups and some of the other things that I keep touch with these groups just so I can see what they're talking about. And they're talking, oh, it's finally happening. The assassinations are happening. That's probably not what this is. I've heard no explanation to what happened with Will Rothschild, how the fire started, if he, passed away naturally, if there's foul. I haven't heard a peep. And you guys probably haven't either, because no one's talking about it. And I don't really know why. But I'm sure we'll find out as the time comes. But I thought I would throw that in there because it is a little unusual that happened. And Cindy, you mentioned Trump meeting with Mark Zuckerberg. That did happen. Donald Trump. He asked Mark Zuckerberg to come over for dinner to Mar-a-Lago, which of course Zuckerberg did. I wish I could have been there. I would have loved to have heard that conversation, because I feel, and I've got to be careful saying this because most of you are listening on that platform, and I really think you shouldn't. I really think you should go over to X and watch and listen to the show on X. At some point, I'm probably going to, unless things change, I'm probably going to stop airing it on the Facebook, because there are just too many regulations. Every single day I'm reprimanded for something that I've said or a video I've shown on the show. Every single day I get some type of reprimand. And one of the things that Trump has said, and recently too, is just July of this year, where he said Mark Zuckerberg is an enemy of the people. That it were his exact words, an enemy of the people. And this is because Zuckerberg admitted, remember that? He admitted that his company took $500 million from the Biden administration, from the government. Why? To keep us from having free speech, to come out and hire all these fact checkers to tell us that everything we say is disinformation. And so Trump, of course, I can't even imagine what happened during that dinner. I hope what I would like to imagine playing out in my mind, there's no truth in this, it's just my own fantasy. I really would like to have seen Donald Trump sit Mark Zuckerberg down and say, hey, Mark Zuckerberg, we know the Biden administration paid you $500 million to really to terminate the right of free speech, our First Amendment. And because of that, you could be prosecuted. So here's your choices, Mark Zuckerberg. You can go ahead and we'll prosecute you once I become president, or you can stop what you're doing. Stop with the fact checking. Stop with the disinformation campaign. Let the people speak. I mean, seriously, let the people speak. And, we're all intelligent people. We can all read comments and posts and know whether to believe it or not believe it. I don't think there's anybody on social media who's reading all of this stuff and taking it as their only source of news. The people who take headlines as their only source of news, those are the headlines from national news, from MSM. It's not what you're seeing on Facebook. So I'm very curious to what will play out from there. Cindy, interesting. He flipped, wants to be on a winning team now. You know, we'll see. We'll see what happens here. I don't know what's going to happen with social media. I know Trump's talking about the what is it, the Section 230, some type of legislation 230. We've talked about it before in the past, and I don't think that there's a good answer. Messing with these 230 laws and talking about liability and so on. I really think that's going to make social media platforms tighten up, if they're liable for what we post, then I think we're going to be censored more. And that some of the legislation I'm hearing being thrown around is going to tighten social media, not let it be freer. So we'll see what happens there. But I would have loved to be part of that meeting. I haven't heard a single word from anyone what came out of that meeting. I don't know if Elon Musk was there. I kind of doubt it. I don't think that Mark Zuckerberg probably would have agreed to come if Elon Musk was going to be there. But look, they're attacking Elon Musk with everything they have as well, just as much as they are Trump. And I know those two have really become close, Trump and Elon Musk. But they're going after Elon Musk for purchasing X and allowing freedom of speech. But yet, what about George Soros? He purchased 200 radio stations. Remember that? But that's okay. It's okay for George Soros to purchase 200 radio stations and control what comes in and out of those stations. Remember when in COVID time, all of these different stations they absolutely had to promote the vaccine. Remember that? And if they didn't, they got in trouble, and all of the people who worked at the stations had to get the vaccine, and if they didn't, they were fired. Think about that. That's okay apparently to Democrats, but Elon Musk purchasing X is not. And it's kind of crazy that all of these different people, all of these world leaders are so upset because people have freedom of speech. Excuse me. That tells us everything we want to know, doesn't it? Why don't they want you to be able to? It's not about you speaking the truth; it's about you seeing the truth. So if they're so transparent, why are they so worried about you finding out the truth? That is what I would like to know. And Pam says, doesn't Zuck have enough money? Why would he take that to silence the country? You'd have to go back and look at his testimony. He said that he didn't really want to, but he felt like he had to. And there's a lot to that because we know, look what happens when you don't do what the government wants you to do under the Democrat regime. They will target you. They'll have their IRS agents on you. They will come and raid your home. They absolutely weaponize the Department of Justice against you. And I'm sure Mark Zuckerberg felt the same way because he has made positive statements about Trump. He has. I've heard them. There are, I don't necessarily think he is a super bad guy. I think that he is a business person and he has made a lot of money on these platforms. I think where do his own political, thoughts align? I don't know. I'm going to assume that he's on the Democrat side, but he's never said that. He actually said when he was under testimony that he felt like he had to. He didn't want to, but he felt like he had to take the money, like he had to, go out in this disinformation campaign. Is it true? Is it not? I don't know. Because I'll tell you what, when Donald Trump was president, Facebook was still censoring people. Remember that? They were still, as a matter of fact, they were censoring us harder than they ever have. So I have a hard time believing that he did this just because the government paid him, because he wasn't getting paid by the government under Trump. So we'll see how that works out. And Tara says they probably have dirt on him. Oh, I bet they do. Pam says he had a choice. He is weak. Yes, he is weak. Trust me, I have no respect for the guy at all. Not at all. He is absolutely weak. And I'm trying to be careful since I'm on his platform right now, but there's no point in being careful because they're going to reprimand me either way. Pam says, doesn't Zuck have enough money? Yeah. Oh, why would he want to silence country? Yeah, he has plenty of money. As a matter of fact, he's built a very nice bunker under his home, as has Jeff Bezos and so many other people. So I think they know what's coming long before we do. And yes, Amy, Zuckerberg did cause a lot of division between Americans by censoring, because when you censor one group of people, then the only messages that are coming out are from the other side. And now we have a good part of our population who believes these horrific things about Donald Trump and Matt Gaetz and us just being supporters of Trump. And that is largely because of social media. And I'm sure you guys heard that Australia has banned social media for anyone under the age of 16 in Australia, completely banned it. And if people allow their children onto social media, or if the children get on social media, you know what, after the ban comes in effect, they're going to be fined. And I've heard the fines are pretty hefty. And I was thinking about them, like, is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I personally think it's a good thing, because when you're 16 years and under, you are it's a very vulnerable age. And we all know what's out there on social media, because it's not just Facebook, it's not just X. You have Kick, you have TikTok, you have Instagram, you have all these different social media groups, and Signal. There's a lot of different things out there that fall under the umbrella that they're being banned for in Australia. And I can think of several different homicide cases, missing person cases, where someone under the age of 16 became a victim because of things that were taking place on social media. Whether that was because they met someone on social media or because they saw something on social media. I do think it's a good idea to ban that for children, and I really wish, in a way, that it's here's where the sticky, slippery slope comes in. Is that I almost said I wish that we would do that here in the United States. But at the same time, here in the United States, we also value our freedom. And that freedom should be for you as the parent to make your own decisions. As a parent in the United States, I think under our Constitution, we should have the right to make our own decisions to how our children are raised. I don't think the government in the United States should ban anyone under 16 from social media. Now, it may be up to the platforms. The platforms can, most of these social media platforms won't allow you to have an account anyway until you're 13, but we know kids get around it. And so, yeah, Amy says kudos to Australia. I'm not sure how to think about it. I'm kind of stuck in the middle. It's such a slippery slope. I know when we started banning, was it TikTok? I can't remember. There was something here. I'm not really on a lot of social media platforms, but there was something we were doing here, and everybody thought it was such a great idea because it's China owned. I'm like, no, that's not a good idea, because once we set that precedent where we start banning a certain platform, or we start banning a certain age group from doing something, then we set a precedent. So it may start here, but where does it end up? All of a sudden, oh, well, people who are 18, they're getting in trouble on social media too. So now let's change the age to 18. A lot like what they're doing in Massachusetts. Massachusetts in 2018, this is very different circumstance, but it's how they keep changing raising the bar. In Massachusetts in 2018, they raised the age of people. If you want to buy tobacco products, now you have to be 21 in Massachusetts as of 2018. Nothing too unusual about that. They banned all flavored tobacco. Well, now guess what? They're raising the bar again. Now Massachusetts wants to ban all tobacco products all across the entire state. So it started, that's how things escalate. Just as an example, things escalate. I don't want to see that happen in our country. We need to be more free, not less free. I don't think the government should make decisions for us. Less government, not more government. And if we allow them to start making these decisions, telling us we're going to ban this platform because we don't trust you to not allow your children to be on it, or we want to ban a platform because we don't trust that you'll go on that platform and know what's true and what's not true. Trust me, they want to ban X. If Trump somehow does not get inaugurated, they will definitely ban X in this country and probably all across all of NATO. And had Kamala Harris won, they were one of the first things they were going to do was to ban X. So we can't let those precedents be set. We have to be very, very careful. And yes, Amy, there's so much inappropriate stuff on social media, but that's when it comes down to the parents. When did we become a country where parents don't parent? You as a parent, not you, Amy, or anyone specifically, we as parents, I'm a parent, we as parents, it's up to us to monitor what our children are doing. When my son's an adult now, but when he was a kid, he didn't have a cell phone. He didn't get a cell phone until he was 17 years old. He didn't have a cell phone. I knew everything he did. I saw what he was doing on his computer, which was a family computer, by the way. And I watched everything he did. When he talked on the phone to people, I knew who he was talking to. When he went out and played with people, I knew who he was playing with. If he went to friend's house, I knew what friend's house he went to. I knew where he was. Even now, he's an adult, and I still know where he's at. That's our job as a parent, is to parent our children. It is not up to the government to tell you what you can and can't do. We have to start parenting. And Allison says, that's the problem. No parenting. It is, Allison, that is one of the biggest problems we face as a society in our country, I think, today, is that we have relinquished the parenting controls. Well, there's so many people who allow their children to just run wild. And then they go into the store, and guess what? The store reprimands them. They go to school, and then the school reprimands them. And we all know, many of you, if you're listening to this show, you're from a time like I am, where I was terrified of my parents. I was terrified of my teachers at school. There's no way in a million years I would have went out into a store and acted like some crazy child. Those things wouldn't have happened because I feared the punishment I had at home. There was no way I would have went out and done those things because I didn't want to be grounded. We didn't have spanking in my home. Either that or maybe I didn't do anything to deserve spanking. I don't know, but I don't recall being spanked. We would get timeouts, and not timeouts in a corner, but we would get grounded from electronics or from watching TV or going to see our friends. And for me, that was the worst thing you could do, was tell me I couldn't go out and see my friends for a month. That was a month when you're at that age is complete torture. We've got to start stepping it up. We shouldn't allow other people to parent us, because guess what's happening? If we continue to not parent our children, the government steps in and they start parenting our children. We cannot let that happen. Joe Adams, I bugged my children's phone. Colonel Adams, I bet you did. And you certainly have the sophistication of technology to do that. I would have too if I thought I could have, that's for sure. We all want to. I don't think there's anything more really that I need to cover today. I think I've got it all out. I just hope that everyone is super careful. Again, if you're out today shopping, be careful. We know this is a high crime day. People are expecting you to be out. They expect you to not only have cash with you, but they expect you to have money on your cards, because obviously you're out shopping, you're expecting to make purchases. Keep an eye on your purse. Don't leave them in the cart, of course, unattended. If you stop and get gas, make sure you lock your passenger side door. If you have to, I put my purse under the seat or over on the side of the seat by me. I lock my doors. I take my keys out with me to get gas. So the usual things, just hyper extended today being Black Friday. As well, this weekend, we're expecting again some snow tomorrow. If you're in Missouri or in this general region, then depending on where you are, they're estimating anywhere between 1 and 3 inches. So please be careful. It is just not worth having an accident. And we all see them play out on TV. I hope that it snows a little bit and then it melts. I hate snow. I hate winter. I'm hoping that we have very little accumulation, but please be safe if you do. And I thank you, Patty. I will look forward to talking to you all on Monday. If you guys are on my social media pages, I'm trying to post more on X, less on the others. So if you're not already following me on X, please make sure you do that. But I will be keeping you guys updated over the weekend as anything unfolds in these current situations that we have taking place. Pam says, I have been paying extra attention to my purse after listening to you. Yes, Pam, please pay attention to your purse, because you see these videos play out, and unfortunately after the fact they've taken your money. Sometimes it takes the bank a long time to give your money back, depending on where you bank. I've been hearing reports of people saying that they're getting money stolen through PayPal. They're, money out of their bank, and banks are not reimbursing them for different reasons. So you just don't want to have to deal with it at all. Keep your stuff handy, keep it with you. When I go to the store, you know what I do? I know this sounds crazy, and I learned this trick from living in St. Louis City for so long, because in St. Louis City, you're a target. Obviously, somebody might want to steal your purse. I would take my driver's license, any debit credit cards, and my cash, and I would, I'm just going to say it, I stuffed it in my bra. And I guess I can say that since we're podcasting. Be creative. Stick your important things wherever you can. And then I would carry my purse. It had absolutely nothing in it but a bunch of junk. Then I thought, you know what, if somebody wants to take my purse, take it. They'll feel like they got something. They'll take off so fast and be out of there, but yet I'll still have the things that are most important to me intact. So please, come up with your own strategy, but be prepared, because it's happening in larger numbers all the time. Well, I do hope you guys have a really fantastic weekend. Hopefully you guys don't go out and shop like crazy. If you do, shop for me. Just kidding, of course. But I don't want to go out and do my own shopping. I would love to hire somebody to go out and do it for me. I think I'm going to do all of my Christmas shopping online, but I would certainly love to have a personal assistant if anybody wants to do my shopping for me. But I do hope you guys have a good weekend. I will be trying to keep everyone informed over the weekend if anything crazy happens. If you guys hear anything, you always know how to reach me, of course. That's what I love so much about the show is it's a sharing of information. People have been sending me texts and emails, and a lot of times, sometimes it's things I've not heard about, which is really great because then that allows me to share it on. Again, hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will talk to you all on